How does a man stay calm after hearing his stepson say his wheelchair would disgrace a graduation ceremony he paid for? Why did one quiet phone call, made that same night, begin to quietly unravel years of carefully planned college dreams? This is how I learned that respect is optional, until the system starts listening. Before we continue, we ask you to hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We would like to get to know our audience better. I was rolling down the hallway toward the kitchen when I heard Evan's voice through the half-open bedroom door. He was talking to his mother, my wife Laura, and his tone had that sharp edge he gets when he's trying to sound reasonable about something unreasonable. "Mom, I'm serious. I don't want him there." I stopped. My hands went still on the wheels. The hardwood floor beneath me suddenly felt like it was tilting, though I knew it wasn't. The house was level. I'd made sure of that after the accident, when we renovated everything to make it accessible. Every doorway widened, every threshold ramped, every surface lowered to where I could reach it from my chair. "Evan, he's your stepfather," Laura said, but her voice was soft. Too soft, the kind of soft that isn't really disagreement, just the sound you make before you fold. "He's not my father. Derek is my father. And I'm not having Nate roll up to graduation in that thing and make it all about him. People will stare. They'll take pictures. It'll look like some charity case instead of my day." That thing, he meant my wheelchair, the one I've used since the rail yard accident 6 years ago, when a switching error sent a freight car lurching sideways and crushed my spine between steel and concrete. The accident that ended my fieldwork, but not my career. The accident that left me alive, employed, and capable of paying for every single semester Evan just spent at a private university 2 states away. The wheelchair is custom-built, designed for someone who spends long hours in it. Black frame, reinforced wheels, cushioned seat that prevents pressure sores. It cost more than most people's cars. Insurance covered most of it, but I paid the difference because I wanted the best. I wanted to be able to move through the world without asking for help every 5 minutes. And my stepson called it that thing. "Evan, that's not fair," Laura said, but again, no strength behind it. Her voice was like tissue paper, present but easily torn. "Nate has done so much for you." "Yeah, financially. I get it, but this is different. Graduation is about image. It's about my future. Employers will be there. Recruiters. I can't have people associating me with that. It's embarrassing." Embarrassing. The word hung in the air like smoke. I could almost see it drifting through the crack in the door, reaching me where I sat frozen in the hallway. I didn't wait to hear the rest. I backed up slowly, the wheels making barely any sound on the floor. I've learned to move quietly when I need to. People don't expect that from someone in a wheelchair. They expect noise, disruption, inconvenience. I turned the chair around with practiced efficiency and wheeled toward the kitchen. My hands were steady on the rims. My breathing was even. I've had years of practice controlling my body when my mind wants to explode. The kitchen was dark except for the light over the stove. I sat there at the table looking at nothing, hearing everything on repeat. The conversation kept playing in my head like a broken record. Disgrace. Embarrassing. That thing? I'd heard Evan say things before, little comments, small dismissals, but never with such clarity. Never so direct, never acknowledging exactly what he thought of me. The kitchen table was oak, solid and old. Laura's grandmother had left it to her. We'd kept it through 3 moves, through my accident, through everything. I ran my hand across the surface, feeling the grain, the small imperfections that come with age and use. Laura came out 20 minutes later. I heard her footsteps before I saw her. Soft, hesitant. She knew I'd been in the hallway. She had to know. She saw me sitting there and froze for half a second, her hand still on the doorframe. Then she walked over and put her hand on my shoulder. "Were you listening?" she asked quietly. "Some of it." He's just stressed about graduation. He doesn't mean it. I looked up at her. Laura was 45 but could pass for younger. Dark hair with just a few threads of grey. Eyes that used to look at me like I mattered. Now they looked at me like I was a problem she didn't know how to solve. Did you tell him he was wrong? She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. It was maybe 2 seconds long, but it stretched out like hours. In those 2 seconds, I understood exactly where I stood in this family. I told him you've been supportive, she said finally. That's not what I asked. She pulled her hand back from my shoulder. Nate, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Let's just get through graduation, okay? It's one day. Right, I said, one day. She kissed the top of my head, a gesture that used to feel loving but now felt like dismissal, and went to bed. I stayed in the kitchen for another hour, staring at the calendar pinned to the corkboard by the fridge. It was one of those big wall calendars with boxes large enough to write in. Appointments, anniversaries, important dates. Laura's handwriting filled most of the spaces. Doctor visits, work schedules. Evan's graduation was circled in blue marker. Laura had written it there months ago with 3 exclamation points. Evan's graduation. I rolled closer, pulled a red pen from the drawer, and circled the date again. This time, no exclamation points. Just a clean red line around May 18th. Deliberate, final. Then I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts. The screen light made my eyes ache in the dark kitchen, but I kept scrolling until I found the name I was looking for. Paul Renwick, railroad legal liaison, old colleague, good man. We'd worked together for 15 years before my accident. He'd visited me in the hospital, helped me navigate the settlement, made sure the company did right by me. He understood how systems worked, how paperwork mattered, how the right clause in the right document could change everything. I typed out a message. Need to talk about education funding structures. You free this week? He replied within 2 minutes. Always. Coffee Thursday? I typed back. Perfect. Then I put the phone down, turned off the kitchen light, and wheeled myself to the guest room where I'd been sleeping for the past 8 months. Laura said it was easier for me to have my own space, easier for me to get in and out of bed, easier for her not to be woken up when I shifted positions at night, easier for everyone, really, if we just stopped pretending we were still a married couple. The guest room was small but functional. Hospital bed with rails, dresser at wheelchair height, bathroom with grab bars and a roll-in shower. Everything I needed to be independent. Everything except respect. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept replaying the conversation, kept hearing Evan's voice, that casual cruelty in his tone, kept seeing Laura's face when she couldn't tell him he was wrong. By morning, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to beg for respect or explain why what he said hurt. I was going to do something much quieter and much more permanent. The next morning arrived with pale sunlight filtering through the guest room blinds. I heard Laura moving around upstairs, getting ready for work. Heard the shower running, then the hairdryer. Normal sounds of a normal morning. I transferred from the bed to my chair, got dressed, and wheeled out to face the day. Breakfast was normal. Too normal. Evan came downstairs in a university sweatshirt, navy blue with gold lettering, the school's colours, grabbed a protein shake from the fridge, and started talking about his final exams like nothing had happened. So I've got economics on Tuesday, then statistics on Thursday, he said, leaning against the counter. He didn't sit down, never sat down at breakfast anymore, always standing, always moving, always ready to leave. Both should be easy. I've been studying with my study group. His study group, people I'd never met, people whose tuition I probably hadn't paid for. Laura made eggs at the stove, scrambled, the way Evan liked them. She'd asked me once if I wanted any. I'd said no. She stopped asking. I drank coffee and read the news on my tablet, an article about railway safety regulations. Another about infrastructure funding, the kind of stuff that mattered in my world, but meant nothing in this kitchen. "Hey, Nate," Evan said, not looking at me. His eyes were on his phone, thumbs moving across the screen. Probably texting someone. Probably someone more important than me. "Can you transfer another $500 to my account? I need to cover some grad expenses." Grad expenses. That was new. He'd already bled me for 4 years of undergraduate. Now he wanted more for graduation itself. "Sure," I said. He blinked and looked up from his phone. "Really? Just like that? Why not?" He shrugged, already looking back down at his screen. "Cool. Thanks." "No, please, no appreciation. Just an expectation that I'd keep paying." Laura glanced at me, surprised. I kept my face blank. She probably expected me to bring up last night, to make a scene, to force a conversation about respect and gratitude and basic human decency. But I've learned something in my years working the rail yard. The loudest engines aren't always the most powerful. The ones that move the heaviest loads are steady, controlled, predictable. Right up until they're not. After Evan left for class and Laura went to work, I rolled into my office and closed the door. The room still smelled like old paper and metal polish. My old work boots sat in the corner, unused but present. I couldn't bring myself to throw them away. Size 11 steel-toed Red Wings, worn soft from years of use. They'd been on my feet the day of the accident. A photograph on the desk showed me and my crew standing beside a restored locomotive, Union Pacific 844, a steam engine we'd helped maintain for heritage runs. I was on my feet in that picture, young, strong, smiling, my arm around Tommy Chen's shoulders, both of us grinning at the camera. Tommy retired 2 years ago, sends me Christmas cards, never visits. I turned the frame face down and opened my filing cabinet. Inside were folders organized by year, by project, by expense. Tax returns going back a decade, insurance documents, medical records, union paperwork, everything documented, everything filed, everything in its place. One folder, thicker than the others, was labeled Evan Education. I pulled it out and spread the contents across the desk. The papers fanned out like a deck of cards, each one representing another piece of the puzzle. Tuition receipts, $47,000 per year, times 4 years. Housing contracts, $15,000 per year. Meal plan invoices, $6,000 per year. Textbook orders, I'd stopped counting those after the first semester when they hit 2,000. Lab fees, technology fees, student activity fees, parking passes, health insurance, emergency funds. For that time, he lost his laptop and needed a new one immediately. Every single expense that made the last 4 years possible. And at the back, behind all the receipts, was a document I'd drafted 5 years ago when Evan first got his acceptance letter. The paper was slightly yellowed now, the creases from being folded and unfolded visible along the edges. Education funding agreement, conditional support structure. I'd written it with Paul's help. Back then, it seemed like overkill. A legal safety net I'd never need. Protection against a scenario I couldn't quite imagine. Laura had laughed when I showed it to her. Not meanly, but with that dismissive affection people use when they think you're being paranoid. "You're overthinking this," she'd said, barely glancing at it. "He's family." I'd signed it anyway. So had Evan, though he barely read it, just scrawled his name at the bottom and went back to his phone, probably texting his friends about how he'd gotten into his dream school. The University Financial Aid Office had countersigned it as part of his scholarship and grant package. Standard procedure, they'd said. Lots of private donors include conditions. I read through it now, slowly, making sure I understood every clause, every word, every implication. Section 4, subsection C. Funding is contingent upon acknowledgement of sponsorship and maintenance of familial respect. In the event of verifiable disrespect or exclusion of the funding sponsor from key academic milestones, the sponsor reserves the right to trigger financial reconciliation protocols with the university. Familial respect, key academic milestones, financial reconciliation protocols. Paul had chosen every word carefully, made sure it was enforceable, but vague enough to give me options, made sure it would hold up if anyone challenged it. I sat back and let out a long breath. The office was quiet, except for the hum of the computer and the distant sound of a neighbor's lawnmower outside. Paul hadn't been kidding when he said this would cover me. The clause was vague enough to be flexible and specific enough to be enforceable. A perfect legal trap waiting to be sprung. I picked up my phone and texted him. "Still on for Thursday?" He replied instantly. "Looking forward to it." I put the document back in the folder and locked the cabinet. The key went into my pocket. I'd carried it there for 5 years without ever thinking about it. Now it felt heavy. Then I rolled out to the living room and turned on the television. Some home renovation show where a couple argued about whether to keep the original hardwood or put in tile. The kind of problem that seemed important until you had real problems. I wasn't really watching. I was thinking. Thinking about the rail yard, about the day of the accident. It was a Tuesday. Cold. March cold. The kind that makes metal brittle and mistakes costly. The temperature had been hovering around freezing all week. We'd been extra careful, double-checking everything, because cold weather meant increased risk. I was overseeing a switch alignment. Routine work. The kind of thing I'd done 1,000 times. A freight car needed to be moved from one track to another. Simple. Standard. But someone in the control tower gave the wrong signal. Mixed up the tracks. Sent the car moving before we were clear. I remember seeing it start to move. Remember shouting into my radio. Remember trying to get out of the way. I remember the sound more than the pain. A metallic screech, then a crunch that seemed to go on forever. Then nothing. I woke up 3 days later, in a hospital bed with Laura crying beside me, and a doctor telling me I'd never walk again. T12 complete spinal cord injury. No sensation below the waist. No movement. No function. Permanent. The railroad company settled quickly. Too quickly, probably. They didn't want a lawsuit, didn't want the publicity. Gave me a desk job in operations management, paid for the renovations to make our house accessible, covered medical expenses, kept me on full salary with benefits. The union rep told me to fight for more, said I could get millions if I sued, but I didn't want to fight. I wanted to work, wanted to prove I was still useful, still capable. So I took the settlement and went back to work. I could have been bitter. Part of me was. But I also knew I was luckier than most. I had income. I had insurance. I had skills that transferred. I could still supervise operations, manage logistics, coordinate schedules. My brain worked fine. My hands worked fine. I just couldn't walk. And I had the ability to keep supporting my family. Evan was 17 when it happened. He'd just started his senior year of high school. I thought the accident might bring us closer, that maybe he'd see me as someone who survived something terrible and kept going, someone who didn't give up. Instead, he started avoiding me. At first, it was small. He'd walk ahead of me in public, putting distance between us. He'd make excuses not to go places if I was coming. Movie theater? Too crowded. Restaurant? Too loud? Mall? Too busy. He'd talk to Laura but not to me, even when we were in the same room. She'd ask him about school, and he'd launch into long stories. She'd ask him about friends, and he'd show her pictures on his phone. But if I asked him anything, I'd get one-word answers. Fine. Good. Whatever. Laura said he was adjusting, that teenage boys don't know how to process big emotions, that he'd come around eventually. I wanted to believe her. But then the college acceptances came in. Evan got into 3 schools. 2 were local, State University, 20 minutes away, community college, with a good transfer program, both affordable, both reasonable, and one was out of state, private, expensive, prestigious. He wanted the expensive one. Laura and I talked about it in the kitchen late one night after Evan had gone to bed. She was worried about the cost. Her income as a part-time bookkeeper wouldn't cover it. She made maybe $30,000 a year, and most of that went to household expenses. Derek, Evan's biological father, was useless. He'd been absent for most of Evan's life, showing up only for birthdays and holidays, never with child support, always with opinions. He lived 3 states away with his new wife and her kids, sent cards, made promises, delivered nothing. So I offered. "I'll cover it," I told Laura. "All of it, tuition, housing, books, everything." "Nate, that's too much," she said, but her eyes were hopeful. She wanted to say yes. Wanted Evan to have his dream school. "It's not. I have the salary, I have the settlement, and he's your son. That makes him my responsibility." She cried and hugged me and called me the best man she'd ever known. Evan just nodded and said, "Thanks." No hug, no eye contact, just thanks. I told myself it was enough. It wasn't. The next 4 years were a pattern, predictable, exhausting, humiliating in ways I didn't let myself acknowledge. I'd send money. Evan would spend it. He'd come home for holidays, stay in his room, leave early. He'd text Laura constantly, pictures of campus, updates about classes, stories about his friends. She'd show me her phone, excited, proud. "Look at this, look at him. He's doing so well." He'd text me only when he needed something. Money for books, money for a campus event, money for a spring break trip, money for new clothes, money, money, money. And I'd send it, every time, without complaint, without conditions. Laura framed my support as just helping out, like it was no big deal, like paying $200,000 over 4 years was something anyone would do. Derek reappeared only for celebrations. Evan's 21st birthday, winter break, summer vacation. He'd show up with gifts he could afford now that someone else was paying for his son's education. Took Evan to baseball games. Took him to bars. Took credit. "My boy's doing incredibly well at school," Derek would say, grinning. "I always knew he'd make something of himself. Your boy, the one I was funding." And slowly, quietly, I realized the truth. I wasn't his stepfather. I wasn't even a father figure. I was his bank. But banks have terms and conditions. Banks have contracts. Banks have the power to foreclose. And I was about to teach Evan what happens when you default. Thursday came. I met Paul at a cafe near the rail yard, one of those places with wide aisles and accessible tables. He'd picked it specifically for me. Old habit from when we used to meet for lunch during my field days. He was already there when I rolled in, coffee waiting for me on the table. Black, 2 sugars, the way I've always taken it. "Nate," he said, standing to shake my hand. He was 58, grey-haired, solid. The kind of man who looked like he could still do physical work, even though he'd been pushing papers for a decade. "Good to see you." "You too, Paul." We talked about work for a while, about staffing issues and new safety regulations, about a derailment in Ohio that was making everyone nervous, about retirement plans and pension calculations. Then he leaned forward, his coffee cup held between both hands. "So," he said, "education funding structures. What's going on?" I told him. All of it. The overheard conversation, Evan's disgrace comment, Laura's silence, the years of financial support and emotional absence. The way I'd become invisible in my own house except when it was time to pay for something. Paul listened without interrupting. His face didn't change, didn't show surprise or judgment, just listened the way lawyers do, collecting information, processing it, looking for angles. When I finished, he nodded slowly. "You still have that agreement we drafted?" "Yeah." "And the university still has it on file?" "Should. It was part of his aid package." Paul smiled, not a happy smile. a lawyer's smile, the kind that meant he saw an opening. Then you have options, he said. That reconciliation clause is enforceable. If you trigger it, the university has to freeze his degree pending resolution. They won't want to, but they're legally required to. What does resolution mean? Depends. Could mean repayment, could mean public acknowledgement, could mean anything you define it as, within reason. The point is, the degree doesn't get conferred until the terms are met. I stared at my coffee. The surface was black and still, reflecting the fluorescent lights overhead. What if I don't want repayment? What if I just want him to understand what he said matters? Paul leaned back in his chair. Then you frame it that way. You trigger the clause, you state your terms, and you let the system do the rest. It's not about revenge. It's about accountability. Will it work? If the paperwork is solid, absolutely. Universities take donor agreements seriously. They have to. Their entire funding model depends on keeping donors happy. And private donors with conditional agreements, those are gold. The university won't risk setting a precedent that conditions don't matter. I nodded slowly. Okay. You sure about this? Paul asked. His eyes were serious now, concerned. Once you start, it's hard to walk it back. This will blow up your family. You know that, right? I thought about Evan's voice, about Laura's hesitation, about the red circle on the calendar. I'm sure. Paul reached into his bag and pulled out a folder. Then let's make sure everything is airtight. We spent the next hour reviewing documents. Paul made notes in the margins, asked questions about dates and signatures, double-checked the university's counter-signature, verified that the agreement was properly filed. This is solid, he said finally. Really solid. Whoever drafted this knew what they were doing. You drafted it, he grinned. I know. I'm good. By the time we finished, I had a plan. Not loud, not dramatic, just inevitable. One more thing, Paul said as I was getting ready to leave. What happens after? Say you do this. Say it works. Say Evan has to publicly acknowledge what he did. Then what? Then he learns. And your marriage? I looked at him. What marriage? He didn't argue. I went home and found Laura in the living room, folding laundry. She had the television on, some talk show with people arguing about politics. She wasn't really watching it, just having it on for noise. How was coffee with Paul? She asked, shaking out one of my shirts. Fine, just work stuff. She smiled. You've been in a good mood lately. Have I? Yeah, I was worried after, but you seem okay. I looked at her, really looked at her. She was still beautiful, still the woman I'd fallen in love with 10 years ago. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, comfortable clothes, no makeup. The version of her that existed only at home. But somewhere along the way, she'd chosen sides, and it wasn't mine. I'm fine, I said. That night, Evan called, video chat. Laura answered and put him on speaker. His face filled her phone screen, smiling, casual. Hey, Mom. Hey, Nate. Hey, sweetheart, Laura said. Hey, I said. So, quick thing. Graduation tickets are limited, like, really limited. I can only get 4. Laura frowned. 4? That's not enough for everyone. I know. So I was thinking, me, you, Derek, and Aunt Janet. That way, both sides of the family are covered. Both sides. His side and Derek's side. Not my side. Laura looked at me. Evan, Nate should be there. Yeah, but Janet really wants to come. And Derek's flying in from Arizona. It's complicated. Nate paid for your education, Laura said, her voice tight. I know. And I'm grateful. But this is about family, Mum. The word hung there. Family. A word that apparently didn't include me. I spoke before Laura could respond. It's fine, I said. Go ahead and give the ticket to Janet. Evan blinked, surprised. Really? Really. Okay, thanks, Nate. I appreciate you being cool about this. No problem. Laura stared at me after we hung up. Nate, it's fine. It's not fine. You should be there. Maybe, but I will be. She didn't understand. I didn't explain. I just rolled back to my office, opened the folder, and made one more call. This time, to the University Financial Aid Office. Yes, this is Nate Holden. I'm calling regarding a funding agreement for Evan Price. I need to speak with someone about activating a reconciliation clause. The woman on the other end paused. Young voice, probably an assistant. Can you hold, please? Sure. 5 minutes later, a different voice came on. Older, more formal, professional. Mr. Holden, this is Marianne Caldwell, Director of Financial Aid. I understand you're calling about a clause in Mr. Price's funding agreement. That's right. Can you give me the agreement number? I read it off the document in front of me. She hummed, and I heard typing. Then a long silence. Mr. Holden, I'm looking at the document now. This clause is unusual. Are you certain you want to proceed? I am. And you understand that triggering this clause will place a hold on Mr. Price's degree until the terms are satisfied? I do. More typing, more silence. All right, I'll need written confirmation from you, along with documentation supporting your claim. Can you provide that? I can. Then we'll proceed. Please be aware this will take effect immediately upon receipt of your materials. Understood. Mr. Holden? Yes? I want to make sure you're aware of the implications. This will be public. It will be part of the ceremony record. Are you prepared for that? I looked at the photograph on my desk, me standing with my crew, young and strong. That version of me was gone. But the version sitting here now had something that version never had. Power. I'm prepared. Very well. I'll send you the submission forms. I hung up and sat there in the dark, listening to the house settle around me, the refrigerator humming, the heating system clicking on, the normal sounds of a normal house. Laura was watching television. Evan was probably out with friends, celebrating the end of exams. And I was sitting in my office, setting the final piece in place. The forms arrived in my email 10 minutes later. I filled them out carefully, attached the receipts, wrote a brief statement explaining what had been said, when it had been said, and why it violated the respect clause in the agreement. And then I hit send. The next 2 weeks were strange, normal on the surface, seismic underneath. Laura started planning for graduation like it was a royal wedding. She bought a new dress, navy blue with white trim, made hotel reservations at a place near campus, talked about restaurants, about celebration dinners, about which family members were coming. She showed me pictures of her dress, asked my opinion. I told her it looked nice. She beamed. Evan posted constantly on social media. Pictures of campus, countdowns to graduation day, hashtags about finishing strong and starting new chapters. His friends commented. His friends' parents commented. Everyone celebrating his achievement, built on my money. Derek called twice, both times to talk to Laura about logistics, about flight times and rental cars, and where everyone was meeting. Both times, she handed me the phone, and I listened to him ramble about how proud he was. Evans really made something of himself, Derek said, his voice carrying that self-satisfied tone of someone taking credit for something they didn't do. Can't believe my boy is graduating. Your boy. The one you never supported, the one you abandoned, the one you saw maybe 6 times in the last 4 years. Yeah, I said. It's something. You coming to the ceremony? We'll see. Well, either way, this is huge. Huge. I always knew he had it in him. You didn't know anything. You weren't there. But I didn't say that. I just made agreeable sounds until he hung up. I didn't tell anyone what I'd done. Not Laura, not Janet, not even Paul, though he knew enough to guess. I just went to work, managed train schedules, coordinated shipments, signed off on safety reports, came home, ate dinner, watched television. Laura thought I'd accepted the situation, that I'd moved on from the ticket conversation, that I'd decided to be the bigger person. She even thanked me one night, catching me in the kitchen after dinner. "I know this isn't easy for you," she said, leaning against the counter, "but I'm glad you're being mature about it." Mature. That's what she called it. I called it patience. "It's fine," I said. "No, really. Evan's young. He doesn't always think about how his words affect people, but he'll learn. And you're being really gracious." Gracious, another word that meant I was accepting less than I deserved. "Sure," I said. She kissed my cheek and went upstairs. I sat there in the dark kitchen, thinking about freight trains, about momentum, about how once something heavy starts moving, it takes a long time to stop it. And I'd already set this train in motion. The university sent me a confirmation email 3 days before graduation. The subject line read, "Reconciliation request, status update." I opened it in my office with the door closed. "Dear Mr. Holden, your reconciliation request has been reviewed and approved. The hold will take effect during the ceremony, as outlined in your agreement. A representative will notify the appropriate parties at the designated time. Please note that this action is irreversible once initiated. If you wish to cancel, you must do so no later than 48 hours before the ceremony. Sincerely, Marianne Caldwell, Director of Financial Aid." I read it twice. Then I deleted it. 48 hours came and went. Evan came home the day before graduation. He was in a great mood, talking non-stop about his plans. He'd lined up job interviews, signed a lease on an apartment in the city, had his whole future mapped out. "This is just the beginning," he said over dinner, gesturing with his fork. "Everything starts tomorrow. New job, new place, new life. It's all happening." Laura beamed across the table. "We're so proud of you, honey." Derek, who'd arrived that afternoon with a duffel bag and a loud voice, raised his glass of beer. "To Evan, my son, the graduate." My son. Always my son. Never our son, never acknowledging that someone else made this possible. I lifted my water glass. "To Evan." Evan grinned, flushed with excitement and beer. "Thanks, everyone, seriously. This wouldn't have been possible without, well, you know, support." Support. Not gratitude, not acknowledgement, just vague, general support. He didn't say my name. Laura squeezed my hand under the table. I squeezed back, playing my part. Later that night, after everyone went to bed, I sat in the living room and thought about the rail yard, about the accident, about the moment the steel crushed into me and I knew my life was about to change forever. I'd survived that, I'd survived this, but Evan, he was about to learn what it felt like when the ground disappeared beneath you. Graduation day arrived bright and clear. Perfect weather, blue sky, light breeze. The kind of day that makes people believe good things are about to happen. Laura was up early, fussing with her dress and her hair. Derek was on the phone with someone, laughing too loud about something that probably wasn't that funny. Evan was in the bathroom for 45 minutes, making sure every detail was perfect. I got dressed in my office. Button-down shirt, pale blue, tie, navy, jacket, charcoal grey. I looked at myself in the mirror, mounted on the wall at wheelchair height, and saw someone calm, steady, ready. Laura knocked on the door. "Nate, you okay?" "Fine." "You don't have to come if you don't want to. I know this is hard." I turned to face her. "I'm coming." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." She studied me for a moment, confused by my certainty. "Okay, if you're sure." We drove separately. Laura, Evan, Derek, and Janet in Laura's SUV. Me in my van, modified with hand controls and a wheelchair lift. The university was an hour away through rolling countryside. I took my time, listened to the radio, classic rock station playing songs from before everything got complicated, watched the landscape roll past. Trees, fields, small towns with single stoplights. When I arrived at the campus, cars were everywhere, families streaming toward the auditorium, everyone dressed up, everyone excited. I found a parking spot near the accessible entrance and took a moment before getting out. Breathed, steadied myself. Then I lowered the lift and rolled out. The auditorium was already filling up, families everywhere, cameras out, flowers, balloons. The energy was high, celebratory. I rolled through the main entrance and found a spot near the side aisle. Good view of the stage, close enough to see everything. A few people glanced at me. A few smiled politely. Most ignored me, focused on finding their own seats, on getting good positions for photos. I didn't care. I was exactly where I needed to be. Laura texted, "Where are you sitting?" I replied, "Side aisle, good spot." She wrote back, "See you after." I put my phone away and waited. The ceremony started with music. Processional march, played by the university orchestra. Faculty filed in, wearing academic regalia, colourful hoods denoting their degrees and institutions. They looked serious, dignified, like they were part of something important. Then came the graduates, rows and rows of them, all in identical black gowns with gold trim, all wearing mortarboards, all smiling. The audience erupted in applause and cheers, parents standing, waving, trying to spot their kids. I spotted Evan near the middle of his section. He was scanning the crowd, probably looking for Derek and Laura. His face was bright with excitement. He didn't see me. Someone gave a welcome speech, then another speech about academic achievement and limitless potential. Then a guest speaker, some alumnus who'd started a tech company, talking about innovation and risk-taking. I tuned it out. I was waiting for one specific moment. Finally, after what felt like hours, the conferral of degrees began. The dean stepped to the microphone and explained the process. Names would be called alphabetically. Graduates would cross the stage. Diplomas would be presented. "We ask that you hold your applause until all graduates have been recognized," he said. Nobody listened. As soon as the first name was called, families erupted. Cheers, whistles, air horns. The names continued, one by one, students walking across the stage, shaking hands, accepting diploma covers. The real diplomas would be mailed later. I watched Evan shift in his seat. He was getting close. Maybe 15 names away. My phone buzzed, a text from Marianne Caldwell. "In position, will proceed as planned." I didn't reply, just put the phone away. 10 more names, 7, 5. The auditorium felt hot. Too many bodies, too much energy. I could feel sweat on my back, but my hands were steady. 3 more names, 2. Then Evan Marley Price. Evan stood, smoothed his gown, started walking toward the stage with that confident stride he gets when people are watching. The walk of someone who thinks the world is about to hand him exactly what he deserves. The crowd clapped. I saw Laura stand, phone out, recording every second. Derek was whistling, loud and obnoxious. Janet was smiling, proud of her nephew. Evan climbed the stairs, reached the top, shook the dean's hand, turned to accept his diploma from the faculty member holding them. And then Marianne Caldwell stepped forward. She was a small woman, maybe 5'3", grey-haired, wearing a professional navy suit. She moved quickly but calmly, the way someone does when they've practiced exactly what they're about to do. She whispered something to the dean. His face changed, went from ceremonial smile to serious concern in a second. He nodded, turned to the faculty member holding the diploma, whispered something to her. Then he turned to Evan. "Mr. Price, please hold for a moment." Evan froze. His hand was still outstretched toward the diploma. "What?" The dean stepped to the microphone. The auditorium was still loud with residual applause and chatter. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice cutting through the noise, We have a brief administrative matter to address. The crowd went quiet, confused. This wasn't part of the program. Marianne took the microphone. Her voice was calm, steady, professional. Evan Price's degree conferral is being temporarily held due to an unresolved financial reconciliation matter. Per the terms of his education funding agreement, signed by Mr. Price and countersigned by this institution, this hold will remain in effect until the matter is resolved with the sponsoring party. The silence was total, thousands of people holding their breath. Evan stared at her. "What are you talking about?" "Your funding agreement includes a clause requiring familial acknowledgement and respect for the sponsoring party. That clause has been formally triggered. Until the terms are satisfied, your degree cannot be conferred." "Who's my sponsor?" Marianne looked directly at me. Everyone followed her gaze. 2,000 heads turning, 2,000 pairs of eyes, finding me sitting in my wheelchair in the side aisle. Evan saw me sitting there, saw my face, calm and expressionless. His face went white. "Nate?" I didn't move, didn't speak, just looked at him. The dean cleared his throat. "Mr. Price, you'll need to step aside so we can continue with the ceremony." "No, wait, this is a mistake." Evan's voice was rising, cracking. "Nate, what are you doing?" I stayed silent. Laura was on her feet in her section, confused. "Nate?" Derek was staring, mouth open. Janet's hand was over her mouth. Evan's voice got louder. "You can't do this. This is my graduation." "Step aside, Mr. Price," the dean said again, firmer this time. 2 security guards moved toward the stage. Campus security in dark uniforms. Evan backed up, hands raised. "This is insane. Nate paid for school, yeah, but that doesn't mean he can just—" "It does, actually," Marianne said, her voice cutting through his protest. "You signed the agreement. The university countersigned it. The terms are legally binding." Evan looked at the crowd, at Laura, at Derek, at the 2,000 witnesses to his humiliation, then back at me. "Nate, please, don't do this." I met his eyes, and for the first time in 6 years, I saw him really see me. Not as a bank, not as a wheelchair, not as an embarrassment, as someone who mattered. "You said I'd disgrace your graduation," I said quietly, but my voice carried in the shocked silence. "Looks like I didn't need to be on stage to do that." Evan's mouth opened, closed. He looked at Laura. "Mom." But Laura was staring at me, realization spreading across her face like water soaking into paper. Slowly, completely. The dean gestured to security. "Please escort Mr. Price off the stage." Evan didn't resist. He stumbled down the stairs, gown tangled around his legs, mortarboard askew on his head. His face was red, tears starting. The security guards guided him back to his seat. The dean returned to the microphone. "We apologize for the interruption. Let's continue. Reese Reynolds." The next graduate stood and walked to the stage. The ceremony continued. People were whispering. Phones were out. This would be on social media within minutes. I sat there and watched the rest of the graduates cross the stage, one by one, exactly as planned. Watched as Evan sat in his seat, surrounded by his classmates who were all getting what he couldn't have. Watched as Laura slowly sat down, her phone forgotten in her hand. Watched as Derek tried to figure out what had just happened, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 6 years. Powerful. The ceremony ended. The graduates stood and threw their mortarboards in the air. Everyone except Evan. He just sat there, staring at nothing. The auditorium emptied slowly. Families clustered together outside, taking pictures, celebrating. The weather was still perfect. The sun was still shining. Everything was exactly as it should be, except for Evan. I rolled toward the exit. People moved out of my way, some staring, some looking away quickly. Word had spread. Everyone knew what had happened. Laura caught up to me in the parking lot. Her face was pale, her new dress already wrinkled from sitting. Nate, her voice shook. What did you just do? What I should have done a long time ago. You humiliated him. He humiliated me first. You just didn't care. That's not fair. No, I said, stopping my chair. It's not, but it's accurate. Derek appeared, face red, veins standing out on his neck. You selfish piece of... Careful, I said. I've got lawyers, good ones, friends who know exactly how to make your life complicated. He froze, mouth still open, his words trailing off into nothing. Evan was leaning against Laura's SUV, head in his hands, shoulders shaking. Laura looked between us. Nate, how do we fix this? We don't. He does. The terms are in the agreement. He acknowledges what he said. He apologizes. Then he gets his degree. You're insane. No, I'm done. I rolled past them toward my van. Janet appeared, stepping in front of me. Nate, hang on. I stopped. That was harsh, she said quietly. Yes. Was it necessary? I looked at her. Janet was my younger sister, the only family I had left after our parents passed. She'd always been fair, always willing to listen. He called me a disgrace, I said. Said my wheelchair would embarrass him. Said he didn't want me at his graduation because people would stare. Her face changed. He said that. Laura heard him. She didn't stop him. Janet looked over at Laura, then back at me. And this was your solution? This was accountability. She was quiet for a moment, then nodded. Okay. You're not going to tell me I went too far? Did you go too far? I don't think so. Then okay. She hugged me. Call me later. I continued to my van, got the lift down, rolled up, secured my chair. Through the window, I saw Evan look up. Saw his face, red, wet, broken, good, let him feel it. I started the engine and drove away. I went home. The house was quiet, empty, exactly what I needed. I rolled into my office, closed the door, and sat there in the silence. My phone was buzzing constantly. Texts from Laura, from Janet, from numbers I didn't recognize. Probably people from the ceremony who'd looked me up. Probably people with opinions about what I'd done. I ignored them all. Instead, I opened my laptop and checked my email. Found what I was looking for. A message from Marianne Caldwell, sent 10 minutes ago. Mr. Holden, the hold has been implemented successfully. Mr. Price has been informed of the terms required for resolution. Should you wish to discuss next steps, please contact me at your convenience. Marianne Caldwell. Next steps. As if this was a business transaction, which I suppose it was. I closed the laptop and looked around my office. At the filing cabinets full of documents. At the photograph of me and my crew, still face down on the desk. At my old work boots in the corner, size 11 steel-toed Red Wings that would never be worn again. At the life I'd built after the accident. I'd thought losing my legs was the worst thing that could happen to me. I was wrong. The worst thing was losing myself, becoming invisible, becoming nothing more than a source of money, becoming someone people talked over, talked around, but never really talked to. But now I'd taken that power back. The front door opened. I heard voices. Laura, Evan, Derek, all of them coming back from campus, probably shell-shocked, probably trying to figure out what had just happened and what came next. Footsteps through the house, urgent, purposeful. Then Laura appeared in my doorway. Her face was pale, her makeup smudged from crying or stress or both. We need to talk. Okay. She came in and closed the door behind her, stood there for a moment, arms crossed, trying to compose herself. Evan wants to apologize. Good. He wants to do it privately, just family. No cameras, no audience, just us. No. She blinked like she hadn't expected that answer. What? The terms are clear. Public acknowledgement, public apology. That's what the agreement says. That's what needs to happen. Nate, be reasonable. He's willing to apologize. Isn't that enough? If it was enough, I wouldn't have put it in the contract. The whole point is public accountability. Private apologies are easy. They don't cost anything. They don't change anything. He's my son, and I'm your husband. Or I was. Hard to tell these days. She flinched like I'd struck her. That's not fair. Then tell me, Laura, when he said I'd disgrace his graduation, what did you say? Did you tell him he was wrong? Did you defend me? Did you stand up for the man who's been paying for everything? She looked away, couldn't meet my eyes. That's what I thought. I didn't know how to handle it, she said quietly. He's my child. I didn't want to make it worse. You could have told him he was wrong. You could have defended me. You could have done literally anything other than stay silent and let him think that kind of disrespect was acceptable. Her eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. I know. But sorry doesn't fix this. He does, by doing exactly what the agreement requires. What if he refuses? Then he doesn't graduate. Simple as that. He signed the agreement. The university countersigned it. The terms are legally binding. Nate. I'm done, Laura. I'm done being invisible. I'm done being the bank that everyone takes from but nobody acknowledges. I'm done pretending this is okay, that this is how families treat each other. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. So what happens now? Now we see if Evan is willing to do what it takes to get what he wants, if he values his degree more than his pride. She stared at me for a long moment, searching my face for something. Mercy, maybe. A sign that I might relent. She didn't find it. Then she nodded slowly and left, closing the door behind her. I heard voices in the living room. Muffled at first, then getting louder. Heard Evan's voice rise, angry and desperate. He's insane. I'm not apologizing in public. That's humiliating. Do you know what that would do to my reputation? Everyone saw what happened at graduation. Everyone's already talking about it. If I have to get up in front of people and grovel. Then you don't get your degree, Laura said, her voice quiet but firm. Mom. He's serious, Evan. And honestly, maybe he's right. Maybe you need to understand what you did, what you said. Silence, long and heavy. I could almost feel the weight of it pressing through the walls. Then Evan's voice, colder now, harder. So you're on his side now? I'm on the side of doing what's right. I should have been on that side from the beginning. More silence, then footsteps, fast, angry, the front door opening, slamming hard enough to rattle the windows. Evan was gone. I sat in my office and smiled. Not a cruel smile, not vindictive, just satisfied. The smile of someone who'd finally drawn a line and refused to let anyone cross it. I heard Laura crying in the living room. Soft, trying to muffle it. Part of me wanted to go to her. The part that still remembered loving her. The part that remembered our wedding day, her smile, the promises we'd made. But a bigger part of me stayed exactly where I was. Because this wasn't just about Evan. It was about her too. About the choice she'd made to stay silent when she should have spoken. About the years of letting me fade into the background while Evan took and took and took. She needed to sit with that. Needed to understand what her silence had cost. I turned off the light in my office and sat there in the dark, listening to the house settle around me. The refrigerator humming, the heating system clicking on. The normal sounds of a normal house. Except nothing was normal anymore. And that was exactly what I wanted. 3 days passed. The house was quiet, tense, like everyone was walking on eggshells, waiting for something to break. Laura stayed, but we barely spoke. She'd tried to apologize again the morning after graduation, cornering me in the kitchen while I made coffee. But I wasn't ready to hear it. Maybe I'd never be ready. Derek left the next morning, his rental car peeling out of the driveway before sunrise. He'd muttered something about lawyers and consequences and how I'd regret this. I didn't care. My lawyer was better. Paul had already assured me of that. Janet called twice. The first time, she just wanted to check in. The second time, she asked the hard question. Are you sure about this? Her voice was careful. concerned. It's pretty extreme, Nate. So is what he said. I know, but is this really about accountability, or is it about punishment? I thought about that. Really thought about it. Can't it be both? She sighed. I get it. I do. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, don't lose yourself in this. Don't become someone you're not because you're angry. I'm not losing myself. I'm finding myself. For the first time in 6 years, I'm remembering what it feels like to matter. She was quiet for a moment. Okay. If you need me, I'm here. Thanks, Jan. I love you, brother. Love you too. On the 4th day, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mr. Holden, a woman's voice. Professional. Familiar. This is Nate. This is Marianne Caldwell. I wanted to update you. Evan Price has requested a meeting with the Dean to discuss resolution terms. I sat up straighter in my chair. What does that mean? It means he's willing to negotiate, to discuss possible alternatives to the public acknowledgement requirement. There's nothing to negotiate. The terms are in the agreement. I understand, Mr. Holden, but the university would like to facilitate a resolution that's less public if possible. We're concerned about the optics, about how this situation reflects on the institution. I don't care about optics. I care about accountability. I appreciate that, but we have alumni donors who are uncomfortable with what happened at the ceremony. They're concerned about precedent, about whether other donors might use similar clauses in ways that could be disruptive. Then maybe the university shouldn't countersign agreements with terms they don't want enforced. Silence on the other end, then a small laugh. That's fair, Mr. Holden. That's very fair. The terms are clear. Public acknowledgement, public apology. If Evan doesn't want to do it, that's his choice. But I'm not changing the terms. Very well. I'll inform the Dean. Thank you. Mr. Holden, one more thing. Yes? I've been in higher education for 30 years. I've seen a lot of funding agreements, a lot of family situations, and I want you to know, I think you're doing the right thing. What he said was inexcusable. The way he treated you was inexcusable, and sometimes people need to face real consequences before they learn. I felt something in my chest loosen, validation from an unexpected source. Thank you, I said. That means more than you know. Good luck, Mr. Holden. She hung up. That night, Laura came into my office. She'd been giving me space, but I could tell she'd been working up the courage to try again. Evan called, she said, standing in the doorway. He's thinking about doing it. Good. Nate, I need to know. If he does this, if he follows through, is it over? Are we okay? Can we start fixing this? I looked at her, really looked at her. She'd aged in the past few days, new lines around her eyes, tension in her jaw. Are we okay? I asked. I don't know. That's why I'm asking. I don't know either. She nodded slowly, accepting that. Fair enough, that's fair. Laura, I've been thinking a lot about us. About the last 6 years. About how things changed after the accident. I know. I've been thinking about it too. Did you know? Did you know how invisible I felt? How much it hurt every time Evan avoided me, every time he acted like I was an embarrassment. She looked down at her hands. I knew he was uncomfortable. I thought he'd grow out of it. You thought he'd grow out of treating me like I didn't matter. I didn't know what to do. He's my son. You're my husband. I felt caught in the middle. You weren't caught in the middle. You chose a side. Every time you stayed silent, you chose him over me. Her eyes filled. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry. I believe you, but sorry doesn't change what happened. Sorry doesn't give me back those 6 years of feeling like I didn't belong in my own family. What can I do? Tell me what I can do to fix this. I don't know if you can. She wiped her eyes. Okay, I understand. She turned to leave, then stopped. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. For standing up for yourself. I should have done it for you. but I'm glad you did it for yourself." She left. I sat there in the quiet, thinking about marriage and family, and what those words even meant anymore. A week after graduation, Marianne called again. I was at work, reviewing a safety report, when my phone rang. "Mr. Holden, I have news. Evan Price has agreed to your terms." I exhaled slowly, hadn't realized I'd been holding my breath. "When?" "There's a university event next Saturday. Alumni brunch and networking event. Public setting, campus community, donors, faculty. Approximately 200 attendees. He's agreed to make a statement." "What kind of statement?" "An acknowledgement of your support and an apology for his behavior. In his own words, in front of the attendees. We'll provide him with the microphone, but we won't script what he says. That has to come from him." "And then the degree is released?" "Immediately. We'll have the official diploma ready. As soon as he completes the statement and you indicate acceptance, we'll confer the degree." "I indicate acceptance?" "Yes. The agreement gives you final say on whether the terms have been satisfied. You'll need to confirm that you consider the matter resolved." I thought about that. Final say, final power. "Okay. Will you be attending?" "Yes." "Very well. I'll send you the details. Mr. Holden?" "Yes?" "I hope this brings you some closure. Some peace." "Me too." "And Mr. Holden, I've recommended to the board that we review all existing donor agreements with reconciliation clauses. Your situation has highlighted some important considerations about how we structure these arrangements." "Good. Maybe the next person won't have to go this far." "Maybe not. Thank you for your time." Laura found out that night. Evan must have called her first, must have told her what was happening. "He's really doing it," she said, finding me in the living room. "Next Saturday, at the alumni brunch." "I know. Are you going to be there?" "Yes." She hesitated, wringing her hands. "Nate, I know this is what you wanted, but I need to ask. Are you doing this for accountability or for revenge? Because there's a difference." I thought about that. Really thought about it. About why I'd done this. About what I wanted Evan to learn. "Accountability," I said finally. "Revenge would be taking something from him he can't get back. This is just making him face what he said. Making him understand that words have consequences. That how you treat people matters." She nodded slowly. "Okay, I can accept that. Are you coming? Do you want me to?" "I don't know." She smiled sadly. "Honest answer. I appreciate that." She sat down on the couch across from me. "I've decided I'm coming. Not for Evan. For you. To support you. Even if I'm 6 years too late." I didn't know what to say to that. She continued. "I've also been looking at therapists. For me, I need to figure out why I let this happen. Why I chose wrong." "That's good. And I'm hoping eventually you might consider couples therapy. Not now. I know you're not ready. But maybe someday." "Maybe." She stood up. "That's enough for now. Thank you for talking to me." She left me alone. The days leading up to the brunch felt long, endless. I went to work every day, came home every night, kept to myself, worked on reports, managed schedules. Did everything I'd always done, but everything felt different. Like I was waiting for something. Like the world was holding its breath. Paul texted, "Heard the news. Proud of you. Dinner after?" I replied, "Yeah, I'd like that." Janet called, "You holding up?" "I'm good." "Really?" "Really. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm doing something right." "Then I'm proud of you too, brother." Saturday arrived, the day of reckoning. Clear sky, warm sun, perfect weather again, like the universe was cooperating. I dressed carefully, same outfit as graduation day. Button-down shirt, pale blue, tie, navy, jacket, charcoal grey. Looked at myself in the mirror and saw someone different from the man who'd gone to that first graduation. That man had been anxious, uncertain, hoping for acknowledgement. This man was calm, certain, demanding it. I drove to campus alone. Laura had offered to come with me, but I'd declined. This was something I needed to do by myself. The drive felt familiar now. Same roads, same landmarks, same university entrance, but different purpose, different ending. The brunch was held in a large hall with high ceilings and big windows overlooking the campus quad. Alumni and faculty mingled, drinking coffee from ceramic cups, eating pastries from silver trays. It looked friendly, casual, like a pleasant Saturday morning social event, but I knew better. Everyone here had heard what happened. Everyone had seen the videos that had inevitably made it to social media. Everyone was here, at least partly, to see what would happen next. I found a spot near the front, close to the small stage where speakers would stand. Good view, good position, right where I needed to be. People noticed me, whispered to each other, pointed discreetly. Some looked sympathetic, some looked curious, some looked disapproving. I ignored them all. Marianne approached, walking quickly across the room. "Mr. Holden, thank you for coming." "Of course. Evan will speak shortly. After his statement, if you're satisfied that the terms have been met, please signal to me and we'll process the degree release immediately." "Understood." She hesitated. "For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. In all my years in education, I've never seen someone stand up for themselves quite like this." "Thank you." She walked away, leaving me alone with my thoughts. The room gradually filled. 200 people, maybe more. All dressed nicely, all talking quietly, all waiting. Then the event organizer, a middle-aged woman in a burgundy suit, stepped to the microphone. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We have a special statement from one of our recent graduates before we begin the program." The room went quiet. Everyone knew what was coming. Evan walked onto the stage. The crowd dispersed. People came up to me. Some shook my hand. Some thanked me for teaching their kids a lesson about respect. I sat there feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Vindicated. Laura appeared. That was hard to watch. "Yeah, but necessary." "Yeah," she knelt down. "I'm sorry, Nate, for everything." "I know. Can we fix this?" I looked at her, saw the woman I'd married, the woman who'd failed me. "I don't know. But maybe we can try. Maybe." Evan found me in the parking lot. "Nate." I turned. "Evan. Can we talk?" "We just did. I mean, really talk." "Okay." He leaned against my van. "I meant what I said. I was terrible. You didn't deserve that." "No, I didn't. I don't know if I can fix it." "Probably not." He flinched. "So what now?" "Now you live with it, you remember. You do better. That's it. That's it." He pushed off, started walking, stopped. "Nate." "Yeah? Thank you, for everything." I nodded. "You're welcome." He walked away. I got in my van and drove home. That night, I sat in my office and looked at the folder one last time. All the receipts, all the proof. I closed the folder, locked the cabinet. Laura was in the living room. "Nate." "Yeah? Are we going to be okay?" I thought about that. "We're going to try." She smiled, small, tentative. "That's enough." And for the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. Not because everything was fixed, but because I'd stood up, figuratively, and made it clear that I mattered.